Welcome MLP fans back to the second episode of MLP Month. Today we're going to look at a Critter Rush deck using white as a backup. If you're somebody who's all about the early game, then yellow has always been the best color for that. Admittedly, white and yellow don't have the best synergy in the game, but you can still kind of compensate for some of yellow's shortcomings with white, because white brings the deck some much needed control. Some people will argue that the new Fluttershy released in Canterlot Nights completely blows the first set one out of the water. They're wrong, it's much worse, but let's take a look at why people think it's good. Its effect pretty much gives Fluttershy Swift, where you can pay one and move her to a problem as long as there's a critter already there. In order to flip her, you need to pay 3 action points, but every action point can be lowered by having a critter in play, so if you have 3 critters in play, you can actually flip her for free. This kind of makes Critter Rush a thing because you can run a whole bunch of critters, and as soon as you get 3 on the board, flip her for free and then pay 1, move her to one of the problems that you've already played a critter at, and everything is good times, but it's still not as good as the other Fluttershy. First of all, the fact that they moved her home limit back down to 3 and 4 is bullcrap. There was literally not a single reason they should have done that. The only reason they did this is because they knew that critter decks would really benefit from this card, and they want to push that other dumb Fluttershy that makes it so that critters don't count towards your home limit. That is literally the only reason that they did this. Also, once she's at a problem, she doesn't really do anything else for you besides be the +1 with Caretaker and be a 4. Like, that's great and all, but with the other Fluttershy, every single time a face-off occurred, you could start pulling one friend for free. So in a way, you're actually getting a lot more value because you pay 2 to move her to a problem, a face-off initiates, and then you get another friend for free. They both moved for 1 instead of just Fluttershy. And if you do that for a Troublemaker face-off, then you pull 1 for Troublemaker face-off, then you initiate a regular face-off, you pull 1 for that face-off, and it's paying 2 to move 3 friends. Really not saying this is a bad card. This is a fantastic card. In fact, we're going to build a deck around it today. But I'm just saying don't think that it's too much better than the other Fluttershy, because in my opinion, the other Fluttershy is still better. And deck list in 5, 4. You see what I did there? It's called pulling a fast one. As always, if you're just here to net deck the deck list, and here it is, please enjoy. All I ask is that you leave me a like on your way out. Those things really do help us out. For the rest of us, you'll notice that this deck is very yellow heavy and doesn't really use white too much at all. The weird thing about yellow is if you're using a critter build, it almost always takes up most of your deck. It's strange because you would imagine that Fluttershy wouldn't be the cards that want the most attention, but actually if you're running something that is purely based around Fluttershy, she's the one that needs the most attention in decks. Let's take a slightly closer look at the cards. We run 3 Blue Jay because he's a very cheap, easy friend to play, especially early game. I've seen some slightly cheesier builds where you can switch out Blue Jay for House Mouse, which is a 1 cost, 1 power, and I can see that working, and it does work oftentimes. It's just after you play it and after you flip Fluttershy, it doesn't have very much application. With the other Fluttershy, House Mouse has a little bit of application because if you don't have anything left to move with Fluttershy's ability, you can just move House Mouse and it's still a +1 to your team, but I digress. I've also seen some builds where you take out Blue Jay and you just run Beaver McBeaverton, and here's my problem with that. Beaver McBeaverton has a 3 color requirement when it comes to yellow. And if you haven't flipped Fluttershy yet, you don't have that yet, whereas if you play Blue Jay, then he doesn't have a color requirement, so he's a lot easier to play. Beaver McBeaverton is way better if you're focusing on a more late game build, but when you're focusing on something really early game like this, you need something you can play like on the 2nd or 3rd turn. Eagle is arguably the best critter and gives this deck some pump. I think most decks in Canterlot Nights are going to need something that pumps because, like, if you don't and your opponent does have something that pumps, you're at a slight disadvantage, but I really think Eagle's pump is really good because at the start of any phase, you can spin a card from beneath him to move him, and it's a reaction. So if your opponent, for example, plays a Troublemaker on one of your problems face down, then at the beginning of their scoring phase, you can pay 1 to move Eagle over there, and you have something there that can defend. And then during that face-off with the Troublemaker, you can also put that flipped card under him as another marker, and he keeps his marker and can continue moving for free. Moving for free is a very big part of this game. It's the reason that blue does so well with Holly Dash and Wildfire. And 3 power is also not bad. Owl is my favorite critter of all time. It's a little harder to play in this build because you're not using the other Fluttershy, and the other Fluttershy can pull him for free, and you don't have to pay the 2 to move him, but, you know, that's a completely other topic for a completely other day. I love Owl because he always costs 1, but the amount you can get from him varies. Like, let's say you have a problem with 4 friends. You can pay 1, put him there, and now your team power goes up by 4. You're paying 1, gaining 4. Or if you have, like, 5 friends there, you're paying 1, gaining 5. So on and so forth. He's a really good, versatile card, and I think every yellow deck should run 3 of them. Even if you're only getting 1 power, you're still paying 1 for 1 power, and that's good. Or 1 for 2 power if you have 2 friends there. It's just too good not to run. It's especially good here because it only costs 1, and it lowers the cost of Fluttershy's flip by 1. So there you go. Manny was kind of the replacement for Beaver McBeaverton in Critter decks, because Manny is, let's face it, a little bit better. Whereas Beaver only got rid of resources in your opponent's home, this could get rid of anything. You could get rid of anything that's bothering you anyway. You could get rid of Tingled Koi Furs, you could get rid of bandages, you could get rid of any resource anywhere that's causing you problems. He does cost 1 more, but because his effect is better, he's way better to play. And after he's on the field already, then it doesn't matter that he costed more. He's still 3 power, which is the same as Beaver. I really like teching in Blossom Force when I have the chance, so I'm going to go ahead and tech her in here at 2. I normally don't like 1 power ponies, but she's kind of neat because when you're involved in a face-off using her, if the friend you flipped is a really good card like Eagle or Owl or something else that you would need, and it would normally go to the bottom of your deck, you can just pay 2 and get rid of Blossom Force to become that new card, which personally is awesome, especially if you get Element of Kindness. Swirl is the best card in Critter Rush decks that's ever been created. You can exhaust her to move 3 critter friends to this card's problem. It's a good way to make up for the fact that the other Fluttershy's effect isn't here and we're going to have to start paying to move our friends. You can also do really cheesy stuff like have 2 of her in play and then exhaust both to move 6, but chances are you're not going to have 6 critter friends in play because our home limit is lower and there's no way you can hold all of those friends. So I play her at 2 to make sure that I get 1, but I don't really want to see the other one, you know? Once you have her in play, you can pay 2 to move her to a problem, and then exhaust her, and then 3 of your critter friends come, rush over that problem, and normally solve it. I don't really like the element cards, but we run the 1 for kindness because kindness is pretty darn awesome. It lets you search your deck for 2 critter friends and put them in your hand, which increases your hand size and searches the critters that you really, really need. If it turns out you don't actually need those critters, you can discard them and give Fluttershy some extra power during face-offs. Overall, I think this is the best of the element cards, but we don't run more than 1 because, honestly, it's not a very good early game card. There's no way you're going to be playing this early game because you have to wait like 3 turns to play it, and then you don't get very much. Drawing 1 mid to late game, though, is awesome. We run Action Shot because playing 1 meets all of our white color requirements. You can also do some kind of silly stuff with him because he gives one of your other friends at that problem plus 4 power. Like, if you give the plus 4 power to an Eagle, not only can he win all of your face-offs forever, but he also meets the color requirements for Element of Kindness, so you can, like, immediately play an Element of Kindness after playing this card, and it's just super crazy. It really is mainly for meeting color requirements, though. Sugar Twist, the regular 2 cost, 2 power, very easy to play, helps meet color requirements. Our final friend is going to be Octavia. No, this deck does not run truly outrageous rarity. I know it's the best card in the game, but it really doesn't have very many applications in this deck. The problems we're going to be running are very low so that we can solve them very quickly, and they just don't have the bonus points to make truly outrageous rarity a thing. On the other hand, if you put Octavia at a problem, then it makes it very hard for your opponent to start reacting to you. You're going to be flooding your problems with friends, and they're going to be like, oh snap, I need to get some friends over there. And if you play Octavia there, they can't get very many friends over there. So you're just going to stay there and win all of the problems all the time. On to events. The lineup here is very standard. We run 3 Yay because it wins face-offs. We're also going to be playing so many critters that Yay is just going to be way too much for our opponent to deal with. Critter Cavalry, best face-off winning card in the game. And then on the white side of things, we play Stand Still because it's the best white event that stops your opponent from doing anything. Pay 2 to move a friend to a problem? You better be paying it again. For resources, we run 2 Critter Cuisine because we're ridiculous. We have like 12 critters in this deck, and if we get 3 or 4 out at a time, paying the 1 to give all of them +1 will make us godly. But we only run 2 because there's no reason to ever get 2 of these out in the same match ever. You're never going to need that much power. Picnic Lunch is a ridiculous card because it lets you flip extra cards during face-offs if you have at least 3 yellow friends at one problem. Guess what? Okay, you're going to be having 3 yellow friends at a problem, especially with Swirl. The best, most ridiculous thing about this card that I don't know why they didn't fix is if you have multiple Picnic Lunches in play, guess what? You're flipping multiple cards. You get 3 of these out, then you're flipping 4 cards during face-offs. It's just ridiculous how good this card is. And finally, we run Tingled Koi Fur at 3 because, come on, okay? You see that friend right there? That's useless for the rest of the game. Sure hope you have something that gets rid of it. Pay 2 action points, make 1 friend useless. Makes sense to me. For Troublemakers, we run 3 yellow Parasprite because what other Troublemaker do you need? Let's take a quick look at our problem deck before we wrap up. A Thorn in his Paw because, again, getting 3 yellow friends to this problem is not going to be a big deal at all. It's an easy 3 bonus points for us, and your opponent has to pay extra to play friends here. Bunny Breakout is our normal starting problem. Comforting Critters only gives our Fluttershy +1, doesn't give anything to your opponent. May the Pest Pet Win gets you a critter, and oftentimes, unless you're fighting a lot of yellow decks, isn't going to help your opponent at all. And finally, This Way Little Ones lets you move critters for free. That's about it. Hope you enjoyed the deck. Focus mainly on your yellow and playing at your opponent's problem. Play the white only when you think it's useful for solving your own problem or when you can do something to make your yellow more powerful. Blossom Forth is not a waste of time. Try to keep it at a problem with your main character at all times. You're going to be saving so many action points moving your main anyway, you might as well keep her there too. Don't worry too much about Element of Kindness. Element of Kindness is a tech card. It's something that you don't have to pull off, but is kind of nice if you do. Octavia changes games. Make sure Octavia is always out on one of the problems doing her job. Mainly your opponent's problem because that's the one you're going to be playing at the most. Tingled Koi Fur is a very powerful card. Don't waste it early on something that doesn't matter. You don't have to be as careful with your action points as other decks do. Go ahead and spend it. Go ahead and get as big a field as you like. Speaking of like, if you enjoyed this video, it would really help if you gave me a thumbs up. Have your own thoughts on the deck? Then leave them in the comments section below. And finally, subscribe to stay up to date on the latest Kudo news. I'll see you for the next deck profile.